May I now welcome today's chair, Professor Fatima Alikhan, Member, Board of Governors, Center for Economic and Social Studies, to the dais. I would like to the speaker, Professor Jeemol Unni, Professor of Economics, Amrut Mody School of Management, Ahmedabad University, to the dais to share her insights with us. Madam will be delivering lecture on entrepreneurship in digital era, platform, startups, and gender dynamics. May I now welcome Professor E. Revathi, Director, Center for Economic and Social Studies, to the dais. Now I will hand over to the chairperson to conduct further proceedings.
Chair. So Mahender Reddy.
May I now welcome Professor Mahender Reddy Garu, founder member CESS.
Yes.
I now request Professor Revathi to welcome the guests. Yeah.
Good morning to all. On behalf of the Center for Economic and Social Studies and on my own behalf, I welcome you all to this 19th memorial lecture of Dr. Waheeduddin Khan. The lecture series in memory of Dr. Waheeduddin Khan has started in 1986, and this is the 19th in the series. I welcome Professor Jeemol Unni, Professor of Economics, Amrut Mody School of Management, Ahmedabad University, to this, who is going to give away the lecture today on entrepreneurship in the digital era, platform startups, and gender dynamics. She was recipient of Yale University postdoctoral fellowship on household economics. She earlier taught University of Ireland and the Institute of Social Studies, The Hague. She was external collaborator to the ILO on engendering informality statistics. Professor Unni also served as senior advisor to the National Commission on Enterprises in Unorganized Sector. And she was also member expert groups of the Niti Aayog and Standing Committee on Economic Statistics, Subcommittee on Labor Force Statistics, and Time Use Survey in MOSPI. She was also member of Board of Governors of a policy advocacy group on the informal economy, women in informal employment, globalizing, and organizing. Her areas of research are interesting and very relevant to our own research areas, that is development economics, informal economy, education, women entrepreneurship, platform economy, minority studies, and social protection. Her recent book on women entrepreneurship in the Indian middle class, published by Orion Blackstone in 2021, is very much familiar to us. As currently a few faculty and scholars are working on this theme, the current lecture is also focused on this, and it will be very interesting to all of us. I welcome Professor Fatima Alikhan, Member Board of Governors CESS, who is chairing the memorial lecture today. Professor Fatima Alikhan is a well-known geographer, retired from the Department of Geography in 2005. She was a professor in geography at the Center for Area Studies, Osmania University, and her research areas are urban and regional planning in the countries of the Indian Ocean region. She also published books on poverty in metropolitan cities, processes of urbanization, and Afghan experience, that was in Nigeria, I think, NGOs and the state in the 21st century, Ghana and India. I welcome Professor J. Mahender Reddy, founder member, Center for Economic Board of Governors, CESS, who is also here. I think if he's willing, he also may share his memories about Professor Waheeduddin Khan on this occasion. I welcome family of Dr. Waheeduddin Khan, Madam Talat Wahid Khan and Asmat Wahid Khan. Dr. Waheeduddin Khan was one of the founder members of CESS and first honorary director when the institute was started in 1980, as well as he was also a full-time director of CESS for the period 1982 to 85. He was dedicated to the building of the center. I think others say that not only institutionally, but also in the physical structure, construction of the building. He has devoted much of his time for that. He was a distinguished scholar in geography and economics. He served as a member of the working group on district planning with Professor C.H. Hanumantarao in 1984, set up by the Planning Commission in 1982, contributing to the thinking on decentralization process, beginning with the 7th five-year plan. He also worked on Metropolitan Hyderabad and its region in 1982, problems and management of minor irrigation schemes, technological choice decision in Indian agriculture. The center has also instituted an award in memory of Dr. Waheeduddin Khan for the best thesis in economics as well as other social sciences. Recently, the awards were given in 2021, and even now we have adjudged the best thesis in economics and other social sciences, which will be given later after the lecture has been completed. Thank you. I now request Chairperson to conduct the proceedings.
Morning, everybody. Again, I would like to welcome everyone, especially Professor Jeemol Unni, who's come a long way to give a lecture. And after I had gone through, skimmed through her paper, I realized what a long way we have come from when I used to teach to now. When I used to teach, everyone thought where is the next job? Today, they have all become job creators. So this is like a dream, and I'm sure all of us look forward to this talk and to see how we can see and relate to the happenings around us. So without, since the paper is very long, very impressive, very wide-ranging, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions, not just for the sake of asking questions, but to take away something. So I request now Professor Jeemol Unni to please deliver the lecture.
Good morning, everyone. It is an honor to be here at the Center for Economic Studies, Economic and Social Studies in Hyderabad. Being an ICSR institute, I really bear my foundations in ICSR institutions, having done my MPhil from Center for Development Studies to Amrut, and having worked at Gujarat Institute of Development Research for a really long time. I was also on ICSR research fellowships for my PhD. So I'm very happy to be able to deliver this lecture. I'm grateful to Professor Nachne and Professor Hanumantarao, Professor Revathi, and the faculty and board of the Center for Economic and Social Studies for inviting me to deliver this Dr. Waheeduddin Khan Memorial Lecture. Although I never met Dr. Khan, I just now heard a lot about him. He was a respected scholar in both geography and economics. I feel honored to be here because I come in a long line of distinguished scholars who have delivered this memorial lecture. And I also discovered while I went through that I'm the first woman speaker in this memorial series, which is rather odd. I cannot claim the scholarship or the eminence of any of the persons who have spoken before me. And on this occasion, I am going to talk about something which I'm actually working on. So it's not the final of what has been done. It's also an ICSR research project on the digital platform workers. And I'm calling this Entrepreneurship in the Digital Era. And I focus on what drives the proliferation of platform companies. I do wish that, like Dr. Fatima Ali just said, that we have more entrepreneurs and job creators than job seekers. That we have not reached there as yet, but there definitely is a drive. So I have this put up this PPT because I hope that they will distribute the lecture, which I will read. But just to focus attention, some of the points are up on this PPT. So India is facing a massive challenge of high levels of unemployment among the youth, especially among the educated urban population. The formal labor market in India is saturated and unable to absorb the ever-increasing number of the labor force. Therefore, the role of small and medium enterprises in creating employment opportunities is vital for the economic prosperity and social stability. Entrepreneurship then becomes a crucial mode for utilizing the youth power and generating employment that will in turn contribute to the economy's growth and development, especially for those who aspire to be owners and employers rather than being employees. Encouragement of the entrepreneurial spirit or the animal spirit among young people is a precondition for the success in employment, growth, competitiveness, and innovation. There's a growing global recognition of startups as drivers of economic growth, innovation, and job creation. The World Economic Forum now recognizes promising startups through its Technology Pioneers program, which highlights early stage companies driving innovation among global industries. In 2025, they recognized 10 top Indian startups companies as technology pioneers. The Startup India initiative in India was launched in 2016 as a flagship policy guiding the nation's rapidly expanding startup ecosystem. The initiative has rolled out several programs with the objective of supporting entrepreneurs, building a robust startup ecosystem, and transforming India into a country of job creators instead of job seekers. Currently, 31 of the 36 states and union territories have dedicated startup policies, and that is critical for providing essential funding, mentorship, market access support required by startups to grow and contribute to the state's revenue and create jobs. Still, the situation of women entrepreneurship is an area of concern. An Asian Development Bank study in 2025 ranked India 58 out of 78 countries in Female Entrepreneurship Index of 2024 and categorized it as a laggard in this area. So we still have a lot of areas of concern. India is seeing a rapid shift to the digital platform companies and digital work arrangements, with the government providing the digital public infrastructure. India's internet ecosystem has developed to encourage technology companies and startups to innovate, creating largely service-based platforms. According to the Ministry of Electronics and IT, India's digital economy has emerged as a significant contributor to economic growth and accounting for 11.7% of GDP and employing 16.6 million, which is still only 2.4% of the workforce. Our workforce being really huge, but it is anticipated that the growth of this economy is going to be very large in the next 10, 15 years. Given this broad context, in today's lecture, I propose to dwell on a few diverse but interconnected issues related to entrepreneurship that have become salient in the recent years. I start with a discussion on Schumpeter's view of entrepreneurship and innovation. This is how we economists look at it, and in what way the latest Nobel Prize winners have taken these ideas forward. And in the rest of the lecture, I focus on the platform economy, as it constitutes a major segment of the tech startups in the country. Moreover, the emergence of platforms can also be seen as a sort of Schumpeterian disruption. We review the literature on platforms and deep into the landscape of tech startups, and I come up with a typology of platform companies, which then helps me to understand how these are valued and which kind of platforms are valued higher and how. I address the question whether economic performance influences the value of platform companies or the value of a company. I find that it is not necessarily the main driver, unlike we economists think. The potential for future growth arising largely from network effects is more likely to influence the funding and the valuation of platform companies. And finally, I address whether platform companies with women founders follow the same pattern as the male founder companies. My empirical exploration is very preliminary today, and I restrict this to data from two cities, Pune and Ahmedabad. And we are working on the entire tech industry in India as well. It's a huge data set. And I use the traction data set of companies. So talking about the Schumpeterian tradition of entrepreneurship and innovation, economists attribute the term entrepreneur and entrepreneurial spirit to Joseph Schumpeter. In Schumpeter's 1934 theory of economic development, the key role of innovation by entrepreneurs is acknowledged as the driver of dynamic and consistent process of economic change. In Schumpeter's theory, economic development progresses through business cycles. That is what he was trying to understand, business cycles. The term creative destruction, which is attributed to him, implies that old technologies give way to new through innovation, and this process drives growth of the economy. Innovative entrepreneurs are the key to and drive the process of economic growth. And in an uncertain economic situation, that is, in a business down cycle, the entrepreneur is the risk taker, and it's his motivation motivated by joy of creation and the will to conquer and the desire to be commercially successful is what drives the economic growth. Schumpeter defined an entrepreneur as a person who is willing and able to convert a new idea or invention to a successful innovation. According to Schumpeter, the essence of entrepreneurship is the discovery of new economic opportunities. An entrepreneur achieves success by introducing a completely new product or service, thereby starting the creative destruction in the existing equilibrium that exists in the market. And that leads to the next cycle of growth. The recent Nobel Prize in Economics in 2025 was awarded to Joel Mokyr, Philip Aghion, and Peter Howitt, and they further embellish Schumpeter's 1934 theory of economic development by addressing many of the how and under what conditions questions that Schumpeter left somewhat open. Schumpeter hints at the social and institutional climate of innovation. Mokyr's historical work emphasizes that sustained growth through technological change is not automatic. While Schumpeter focused on the individual entrepreneurial innovation, Mokyr emphasized the need for a supporting ecosystem and intellectual culture. Aghion and Howitt shed more light on the Schumpeter idea of creative destruction through a mathematical model, showing how innovation by new firms leads to displacement of old firms and how this churning leads to sustained growth. In this, they were different from Schumpeter. Schumpeter's theory explains economic progress through business cycles, while Aghion and Howitt use the endogenous growth model to show how innovation leads to sustained growth. And this sustained growth is not limited by these periodic cycles that Schumpeter was talking about. Entrepreneurship, however, was not given its due as a discipline in economics, but was captured by the management literature. So most of the literature on entrepreneurship that you see is really coming in the management journals and in the management literature. And it became a part of strategic management within the management field. It addressed two core questions. Who starts up a business? What are the non-financial preconditions of successful business growth? There emerged a consensus that entrepreneurship is a study of the emergence of new activity. Shane and Venkataraman, again the pioneers in this entrepreneurship study, suggested that a fundamental starting point of entrepreneurship research is the question, how, why, and when do entrepreneurial firms discover and exploit new opportunities? Shane, another pioneer in this area, developed this further in his book, The General Theory of Entrepreneurship. And he argued that entrepreneurship occurs when individuals identify and exploit opportunity. But his idea was that the individual opportunity nexus is shaped within the local context of institutions, markets, and the society. Thus, in the management literature, entrepreneurial individuals who exploit opportunities may not necessarily be Schumpeterian in the sense of always using new technology for such endeavors. Management and the innovation policy literature also explicitly recognizes that the economic environment characterized by extant institutions along with markets and social structures has a significant effect on individual entrepreneurship activity. This recognition reiterates Mokyr's insight that innovation is not automatic and requires an enabling environment. Further in this literature, Kistner further classified entrepreneurs into innovation entrepreneurs, arbitrage entrepreneurs, and need-based entrepreneurs. According to Schumpeter, only innovation entrepreneurs are the real entrepreneurs, as they create this disequilibrium force, which then leads to creative destruction and then leads to economic growth, according to him. However, a key takeaway from the literature on women entrepreneurship. Women entrepreneurship developed much later. In the beginning, entrepreneurship didn't have a gender identity. Everybody thought entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs. And later on, I don't have the time to describe the entire women entrepreneurship literature. So in that literature, one of the key takeaways was that entrepreneurship was a result of necessity as well as opportunity. And women entrepreneurs pursue goals that are beyond economic gains. So the whole idea of Schumpeter's and the other management literature that is opportunity, risk-taking, etc., might not apply to women entrepreneurs. Women's decision to become an entrepreneur can be precipitated by both push and pull factors. Early theory focused on pull factors, but Shapiro and Sokol later argued that push factors apply to the entrepreneurial activities undertaken by push factors also affect the minority groups, including women, who take up entrepreneurship. It is not just profits and attaining scale that might motivate a woman entrepreneur. This might also, later on, when we see the difference between platform founder, male and female founders, these might be able to explain it. Though, of course, I have not been able to prove that. Entrepreneurial theory and the platform economy, a brief review. The rapid proliferation of digital technologies has disrupted entrepreneurial activity in many ways, including through reshaping the business models. Digital entrepreneurship is different from traditional entrepreneurship, and digital technologies has massively widened the knowledge and customer base, customer market. Networking, powered by digital technology, has led to a proliferation of small digital platform companies, even in the less developed countries. So what's a platform? A platform is a technology-driven intermediary that facilitates transactions, services, or interactions by between two or more independent groups, often generating value through network effects and multi-party participation. Platform companies can be seen as spaces for micro-entrepreneurship. As micro-entrepreneurs, they set their own hours of work, market products and services, and build reputational capital through networks. Platforms help to lower entry barriers to entrepreneurship by providing access to markets, reputation systems, and digital infrastructure. Women entrepreneurs, when they take advantage of the digital infrastructure available, it lowers entry barriers to that particular area, and it also increases their market or their clients that they can reach. Platforms function as a marketplace and create a community of users who interact with each other. There are several strands in the burgeoning literature on platforms. One strand discusses technological aspects of platform companies, another visualizes the change in the organization of work and its impact on workers. However, partly due to lack of data on the universe of the companies, there are few attempts to study the size of the platform economy in a region. So that has become one of the research areas and questions that we'd like to ask. How big is this platform companies in the set of, in our case, tech companies? Entrepreneurship creates value by taking advantage of opportunities. The digital infrastructure in the country has provided a unique opportunity for platform-based entrepreneurship. Have platform startups created significant value? Valuation of startups is always difficult as the available information is limited, and valuing platform firms is much more challenging than compared to valuing conventional brick and mortar firms. In the traditional companies which have been operating for some time, various techniques and methods have been developed based on the value creation to assess wealth generated by the company. The literature reviews the methods used for valuation, and there are numerous methods. I'll just refer to a few. Olivia discusses various methods used to value companies based on their intention. So it can be based on economic methods like sales, profit, dividend value, and other profitability, which is what the parameters that we as economists generally use. It can be discounted cash flows, which is the finance people generally use. Economic value added is a financial performance matrix, which measures how much value a company creates for its shareholders. EVA reveals whether a company's profit exceeds the minimum returns required by investors. Another method identifies goodwill as the difference between the economic value of the company and its equity value or the market value. It is the qualities and differentials of a company expressed through its future capacity to produce wealth, trademarks, market share, organizational knowledge, quality in internal processes, know-how, market credibility, over and above economic performance, which might be creating value. And another method, a fifth method, is called the scorecard method, which is basically taking into consideration this future potential. And it assesses startup by comparing it with other young companies recently funded in the same geographical area and in the same life cycle, based on strength of the management team, scalability, product and technology, competitive environment, marketing and sales channels, partnership, and need for additional investment. Montani has argued that currently there is no perfect method to assess a startup's value. We are witnessing a gradual withdrawal from more arbitrary valuation models, and a consciousness is growing towards the idea that to better assess startups' value, it is necessary to consider three aspects: attention to future forecasts instead of the past data, using probability to consider different scenarios, and understanding of and attention to the specific business model of the startup rather than the data on comparable companies in the market. So basically moving away from the standard methods that we have of economic performance and trying to figure out what is it that will affect the future potential of this company. And that is what investors are seeing as the valuation of a company. So as you can see, this is way out of my league, but we're trying to understand it. The literature on platform economy also reviews the sources of valuation of the company. And some of the main sources are network effects, complementers, economies of scale and scope, capabilities, and customer providing content. So what is network effect? Network effects could be direct or indirect. Direct effects arise when the possibility or benefits of user network participation increases with additional network users on the same side of the market. That is basically a company acquiring more and more customers. That is the same side of the market. Indirect effects is when the different sides of the market benefit or gain value from the size or characteristics of the other side of the market. That means both on the demand side and on the supply side, the users are increasing. So that is the network effects. These network effects create value by increasing the reach, that's markets, interaction, and matching between the users. The second reason for valuation of a company, the source could be the complementers on a platform, who are businesses that create products or services that enhance the value of the platform for users. They create value through their reach, innovativeness, and by helping to improve efficiency. The third thing is what we are used to, scale and scope. So value from scale is created by size or reach of the platform. Value by scope is created through multiple products or services. This is an economics language. Capabilities apply to both platforms and complementers and include managing customers, increasing platform performance, and pricing strategies. Users also contribute to the valuation of the company. So users can contribute through suggestions of products and services, engagement in discussion, uploading pictures and videos in return for social identity and status, and a sense of belonging or monetary reward. Every time we are clicking on something, we are also adding value to particular platforms. Colbert and Manigrad identified valuation of companies as a gap in the literature. So that's the second idea that I'm trying to talk about in this. A key element of the investment process remained unexplored in the scholarly literature named as valuation, which is the evaluation of the investment opportunity or the bargaining price. This is attributed to lack of reliable data on the relevant variables to assess valuation. So valuation is you need to fix a price of the company so that the next investor can consider what is he going to value that company at. So that is why many of these platforms are dependent on the funding, and that's where the venture capital and so on come into this game. The research questions are these two, looking at the size of the platform and how and why is valuation of the platforms occurring or valuation of tech companies as a whole. And the question is whether economic performance influences valuation of the company or is it the future growth potential of the company, which is what many of those valuation methods were trying to say, how to measure the future growth of the company. Now, the interesting thing that I've tried to do is to develop some kind of a typology of platforms, a typology of tech-based companies. Why do I choose tech sector? Because that's more likely to have platforms than if I just take up any aggregate company. So the literature classifies platforms in many ways. Platforms facilitate interaction between different actors through technology, enabling efficient resource matching. The set of people classified platforms into capital platforms and labor platforms. Capital platforms are investment platform solutions for financial. We've heard a lot about tech companies and tech fintechs and so on. They all fall under this thing called capital platforms. Labor platforms are the ones that connect the consumers to service providers, both physically and virtual. And this is what we are more used to. Under this would come all our Swiggies and so on. The ILO has classified commercial digital platforms into web-based, freelance kind of platforms and location-based, like, for example, the transport and delivery work that we are seeing. Digital platform companies are entities that bring together economic agents, actively manage network effects between them. That is a digital platform. That is the larger set. And the set within that, a subset within that, are digital labor platforms. They facilitate matching of individuals seeking work and those needing services. Taking a broad set of tech companies and using transaction database, I have developed a kind of a typology of platforms. And that is the typology. So what is a tech company? The traction data defines a tech industry as one which produces digital products and services, including apps, software, online platforms, connecting devices, and also high IP products like biotech, drugs, and so on. So we filtered this data set for Pune and Ahmedabad by location, and then we took only the tech companies, the industry which was classified as tech, and companies listed during the period 2015 to 2024. It's after 2015 that the platform, the proliferation of these platforms started to occur. Around 2015, we had the entry of Uber, entry of many platforms, including Urban Company and so on. Around 15-16. We classified tech companies into transactional platforms, non-transactional platforms, and then those which are not platforms. So what are transactional platforms? They facilitate multi-party interaction, connecting buyers and sellers, service producers, consumers, or employers and job seekers. It enables economic or transactional exchanges so that users transact, hire, buy or sell, or collaborate within the platform. It does not own the inventory or directly provide the service. The platforms are only facilitating third-party interactions. Network effects matter for such platforms, as more users mean more value, as we were defining networks as direct and indirect network effects. These platforms are monetized via commission, subscription, or advertisements, and revenue comes from facilitating transactions. So they generally try to make money on each transaction. That's why we're calling them transaction. The classic cases are Uber and Swiggy and Urban Company and so on. Now, what are non-transactional platforms? They are software systems or digital services that provide structured tools or services or enhance the internal workflow for businesses or individuals without enabling a direct multi-party transaction or a marketplace interaction. So these are companies which enhance internal operations as users employ it for process of automation, management, or optimization. So within the company, improving efficiency there. It does not connect independent buyers and sellers. Rather, it serves an organization or an individual's need without facilitating commerce between third parties. These can include AI used in companies for automation, analytics, and for internal efficiencies. Many of our institutions also use CRM, ERPs, LMS, financial analytics, health management. It does not function as a marketplace as transactional platforms do. Such portals is not transactional in nature beyond its direct service model. They are workflow based or business focused tools and are usually subscription based. So, and then the companies which do not fall into these categories of platform transaction or non-transaction are generally brick and mortar companies that transact business physically or face to face. And they do not fit into the characters described above, and we call them non-platforms, or they're not platform companies. In this data set that we looked at for these two cities, we had a total of 7281 companies. 63% of them were in Pune. So you can see how dynamic Pune is as compared to Ahmedabad in terms of the new versions of industry over the past decade. Under the industry category, tech. So we're only looking at tech companies. The data set was categorized into platforms, transactional platforms, non-transactional platforms, and non-platforms, as I discussed above. And how did we do this? It's all trial and error. We used certain keywords, as you can see in the book, in the write-up that you people had. We created indices, so we had keywords for transactional platforms and non-transactional platforms, and then we tried to see where each company was fitting. So that the two index values we created, transaction, non-transaction, based on the number of keywords that was describing a company. For any company with only one positive index, it's very easy. You put them into the transaction side, non-transaction category, or non-platform category. But then if they had two, if they were coming into two in the two, then we had to manually look at them and do that. There were very few of them, but we did have to do that manually. And then read all the other categories, look at their websites, you can really figure out what these companies do. Companies that had a zero index value then became the non-platforms. And that's how we, so broadly, this is what we got out of that 7,281 companies. In the universe of all these tech companies in these two cities alone, 40% of them we identified as platforms. So that's among the tech companies. Okay, it's not that, so if there is an automobile company, that's not a tech company. Like Pune is very famous for automobiles industry. So within the tech company, 40% were platform companies. And within that, within these identified platform companies, 40%, nearly half of them were transactional platforms. So that is about 19% of them, of all the tech companies, were these transactional platforms, and the other rest, like 21 of them, were non-transactional platforms. That's the broad size. So that's like the first idea that we had, that what is this universe? What are we actually talking about? Now we're going to do that for all of India tech companies, but we're broadly coming up with the same, 40% being platforms and 20%, but that is yet to be done. Now we go on to the valuation of tech startups. Valuation, now what is this valuation again? Valuation is the evaluation of the investment opportunity or the bargain price for new investors in a company. So the capital is an investment where both parties, investors and the startups, need to have a common denominator regarding the amount to be invested by the investors. This is presented by a process of business valuation in each to reach an agreed value. For startup companies that do not have a substantial operational and financial history, it is difficult to arrive at a valuation. So if this startup is only 5 years old, it doesn't have a history of all our economic variables, it's very difficult to value them. And still they are the ones that are being funded and the investors need to know. So that is why all those methods of valuation. Hence the future potential and innovation factor of the project is considered to be very important, and not just the business maturity of the company. As the future is uncertain and the assumptions are variable, it is difficult to estimate the actual value of a company. But still they have to do it because they want to invest. And Traction database is one of those databases that actually does that, taking this Traction score. And that's why we use this. We looked at many other databases, but they don't have this idea of having a variable which looks at future potential growth. So there's something called venture intelligence. There's, of course, Provis, which has nothing of this kind, old style, value-added methodologies. Transaction database does not publicly disclose its exact proprietary valuation method, right? So that's a limitation. But it measures what we call post-money valuation of the company by using the standard methodologies used by venture capital and private market intelligence platforms. Post-money valuation is actually equals the existing investment and equity, which is called the pre-money valuation. All of this, you can check it on net, plus the new equity investments. The transaction database measures. Yeah, so that is our finally what we are planning to do. First, we created a typology of platforms in tech companies. We look at transactional platforms, non-transfer. We figure out how many of them exist and what proportion they are. And then now we have this economic performance and we have the future growth, two variables. And we're going to check whether, again, we've done a lot of econometrics, so we are not showing here. So we just come at some results. The valuation and economic performance, how much is affected by economic performance and how much of it is affected by the future growth potential, and based on the typology of these platforms, how transactional and non-transactional platform may be different. So transaction database measures economic performance of a company by indicators like value of funding, annual revenue, net profit, and EBITDA, which is the earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. These are the variables that we are used to. It's economic performance. And this is like what I had earlier talked about, the economic value added technique. Now, the potential of future growth of the company is measured by a variable which the transaction database calls a transaction score. It is based on what we have seen as a method, the scorecard method. It is an index of factors that account for future growth prospects, including size of the company, composition of the team. Now, that's a very, very important variable. I mean, if you have if you have all economists in a company, that company is going to fail. I can assure you. So, what is the composition of your team? Execution, which they get through ratings. And the rating can be on both sides of the platform, the consumers and the other companies, and growth. So this is close to the scorecard method. So we are defining economic performance and future growth potential as two variables. And then we investigate the relationship between valuation and some of these performance indicators, including this value of funding, annual revenue, net profit, EBITDA. And future growth potential, which is the transaction score. And to predict the valuation of the companies, the literature has suggested that EBITDA is a better variable, which is basically operational profits as compared to net profits, which is overall profits. So in the final analysis, we will use EBITDA and not all the other. So now, as you can imagine, given this database, there are several limitations in the indicators used to evaluate the performance of companies. First and foremost, the database is sketchy, of course, which is true of any company database, because the companies do not provide all the information about all the variables. And this makes it difficult to compare categories of companies as the sample is not necessarily homogeneous. As our interest is in the valuation of companies, which is based on equity funding, only a subset of the all tech companies have received funding. So even if we say that 40% are platform companies and this and so on, all these companies have not received funding. So we can only analyze those ones, and that reduces our sample size in a huge way because we are wanting to look at valuation. Okay, so just broadly, the economic performance, we try to look at. These just means, and these are all the variables that we have: funding, value of funding, the valuation given to the company, revenue, net profit, and EBITDA. The transaction score is not here. And we're looking at them across the typology of companies, that is all tech companies. We are comparing platforms and to non-platforms, that is the second and the last columns. And then within the platforms, we are comparing transactional and non-transactional platforms to understand what is happening to the economic performance. Right. The average value of funding or valuation, approximately 7 million, or that is the value of funding, and the valuation around 29 million, and the employee count, which is about 150 workers, are the same for platform, non-platform, and these are like the average tech company. The main variation is actually within the platform companies between the transactional and non-transactional platforms. the transactional platforms are valued at approximately 1.4 times more than that of the tech industry, and they receive 1.4 times more funding. So if you look at that transactional one, which has all the red and blue colors on it, they have higher value and they have higher funding. The non-transactional platforms are valued much lower, only 0.4 times the industry average, that is the tech company average, and they receive only 0.62 times the funding of all tech companies. This implies that while overall platform, non-platform companies appear on average similar to the all tech companies, there is a large variation in the valuation and funding within the platform companies. And that is what makes our typology of transactional and non-transactional platforms more valid. The strength of the company's status as a platform signaling higher value and investment, which is lying in the transactional platforms, is coming from their ability to generate network effects. Network effects is to be able to capture more users, to be able to have indirect effects on both sides of the platform, and so on. This is what distinguishes the transactional platforms from the non-transactional platforms. Revenue, if you look at the revenue, which is the row 3 in that, does not indicate the network effect theories of the tech industry. So, yeah. Platform and non-platform display immense heterogeneity in their net profit. If you look at row 4, which is the net profits, they platforms make an average loss of $130,000, whereas non-platforms on average make a profit of $107,000. However, if you look at the operational profits, which is EBITDA, the average platform hovers around break-even at about minus 8,000, while non-platforms earn operational profits on an average. So the non-platforms are earning the profit, but not the platforms. Within the platform, this is the major difference. The transactional platforms incur higher overall losses than the non-transactional ones, but they earn on average positive operational profits. This implies that the transactional platforms companies, though they have negative net profit, they have positive EBITDA, which is the profitable core operations. So their core operations are profitable. That's why they have EBITDA as positive, but they are dragged down by the expenses, which are the non-operational costs, like interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, and so on. These non-operational costs for transactional platforms are very high because they have to invest in the acquisition of customers towards building the network effects, which is what is giving them their higher value. So in order to be able to have future potential, they need to increase their user base or their clientele and so on. And in order to do that, they have to make a lot of investments. That is including taking credit, taking funding, paying the taxes, and so on, which are the non-operational. That thing is very high for the transactional platforms, but that is what is giving them value, because that is the reason why they are having greater network effects. Overall, platform and non-platforms perform similar to tech, except for the revenue and profitability, which is the operational profits, EBITDA. However, there is a huge variance introduced when we bifurcate these firms into transactional and non-transactional. This is what we are deriving from this. Transactional platforms have higher valuation emanating from their strong network effects compared to non-transactional platforms, though facing negative net profits due to high non-operational costs. So obviously, this is just looking at means. So we have done a lot of regressions, but we're just showing you one. And this is what we're calling a spline regression. Now, I can't go through the reasons why we have a spline regression. To understand the valuation of companies based on economic performance or on the future growth potential. So what we found is that the economic performance might not be the reason for the high valuation of the transactional platforms. The economic performance was measured by EBITDA and the future growth potential by transaction score. Overall, platform companies are significantly positively affected by future potential growth only. This is table 5. and you look at the platform, if you look at the red mark at the bottom, only the transaction score is relevant. Valuation of non-platform and all tech companies are positively affected significantly by both profitability and future potential growth. Within the platform companies is the difference between the transaction and non-transaction platforms. Transaction platform values is significantly positively affected by both profitability and future growth. Non-transaction has no relationship with either. As you can see, the non-transaction platform column has no color at all. It is the transactional platforms which are having higher, significantly positively, valuation is significantly positively affected by profitability. So the Y variable here is valuation, okay? And we are looking at the impact of profitability, EBITDA, and future potential growth on the valuation of the companies. And then we see that the transactional platforms are doing much better, and we are surmising, we've not proved it, that it might be because of the fact that they have greater network effects. So among the platform startups, this is what I said just now. Among the platform startups, clearly, transactional platforms have higher valuation, which were the means we saw in the earlier table. And the valuation of this transaction platforms have stronger correlation with both the future potential growth and economic performance, as we saw in the regression. Higher valuation and stronger association with future growth potential of transaction platforms is because they can generate the greater network effects. And then we go on to say a little bit about what's happening to women platform entrepreneurs. So how do women entrepreneurs fare in this universe of tech and platform companies? So to my pleasant surprise, 20% of all tech companies, both platform and non-platform companies, had women founders or co-founders. We could not classify these into transaction, non-transaction, because then the size of the sample becomes very, very small. The economic performance of women founder companies was, however, very different from that of male founder companies. Funding, valuation, and economic performance of male founded companies, platform and non-platform companies, were similar to the all tech companies, and it was very high. So women founder platform companies had much lower funding and much lower valuation than the non-platforms. Non-platform women founders had higher valuation. Basically, they were the more established ones, and then the women founder companies were still, finding their feet, or the nature of these platforms must be very different. So I can only surmise. I don't have evidence. So women founder companies had much lower funding and valuation than non-platform companies, and the latter having, that is the non-platforms having higher exceptional value. Unlike the male founder and tech companies, women founder platform companies had much higher average revenue along with positive net profit and operational profits, and female non-platform companies were actually making the losses than the average female tech companies. So overall, women founder platform companies seem to have higher scale in terms of total valuation, but lower valuation compared to the non-platforms. Non-platform firms were smaller in scale, but seem to have higher valuation. This pattern was the opposite of the male founder transaction tech companies, where platforms with lower scale had much higher value, and male founder platforms were like the tech companies, made overall and operational losses. We hypothesize that the high value of male founder companies, despite being loss-making firms on average, can probably accounted for by the fact that there were many more transactional platforms there, which was generating these network effects. We don't know much about the women founder platforms, so future research should be able to go into this hypothesis to see what is this gender dynamics at play. I'll end now. So what we looked at was the entrepreneurship theory, which views entrepreneurs as seeking opportunity, taking risk, and creating value through businesses. And digital entrepreneurs and innovation have reorganized the way companies work and create value. Platform startups are micro-entrepreneurs that embody Schumpeter's idea of creative destruction. Platforms form about 40% of all tech companies in the two cities, And it was heartening to find that nearly 20% of platform and non-platform companies had at least one female founder. Does the economic performance of companies influence their valuation? Well, basically, we found that the transaction platforms at least were more affected by their transaction score, or rather future potential, rather than the economic performance. The methods used, however, are still a problem. Used to value the companies differ for manufacturing versus services, startups versus older companies, and the approaches of valuation of venture capital funded companies versus unfunded companies are also different. Venture capital funding of companies suggests that the investors believe in the company's future. Hence, valuation may not be influenced by the economic performance, but rather the capitalists are looking for the possibilities, the probability of future growth and future value of the company. So we basically can say that we arrived at some hypothesis, since we are not able to prove anything as yet, regarding the economic performance and valuation of tech companies. So one, valuation of platform companies is driven by future growth potential and not necessarily by economic performance alone. Valuation of transactional platforms is higher due to greater network effects, and male founder platforms have higher valuation than non-platform companies driven by transactional platforms with greater network effects. So there is this striking gender differential in platform entrepreneurs, where women founder platform companies have lower funding and valuation, perhaps due to the nature of the platform and the motivations, like we said earlier, of these women entrepreneurs not necessarily being profit and attaining scale. So these are just hypotheses, and we have very young people here who are there to investigate these hypotheses further. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Jeemol Unni. I think you have introduced everyone to a new language. I had to learn that language before this. We used to talk of literacy not very long ago, each one teach one. Now we are back to literacy, each one teach one. So, but there's a very positive, feel to what you have said. I'm sure everyone would like to learn how to enter this digital platform economy, because earlier one depended first on government jobs. Now those jobs have gone, and even all the various things that came after that have been disappointing. So maybe this is the future.
Yes, sir, Madam Fatima Alikhan, Madam Speaker, Professor Revathi, distinguished professors in the audience, Mrs. Waheeduddin Khan, and then the Waheeduddin Khan's daughter, distinguished professors, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to just spend only 1 minute, because I was so close with Waheed, but this is long ago. Unfortunately, we lost him 40 years ago. This is unbelievable. You see, I was shocked on that day when he gave the news. See, I was in Usman University at that time, but earlier I was colleague with Professor Waheeduddin Khan. Our offices were just next door, and he was my boss. But he never looked like a boss. He was like a friend. You see, so he was a very fine person, man with a big heart. And he played a very catalytic role in my moving away from Administrative Staff College to Usman University, because Justice Jeemol Unni was the then Vice Chancellor. He was also a member of the Court of Governors of Administrative Staff College of India. And we were in the Administrative Staff College in India. So he was very helpful in that sense. So we miss him very badly. I would like to congratulate Madam for the excellent presentation she has made. It's a pure research work. It's a
Best PhD thesis award 2025. The two research scholars. I request Dr. Ali
To give a context to this setting of the awards, Fund was set up long back with contributions by Professor C.H. Hanumantrao, Professor J. Mahender Reddy, Professor Mahender Reddy, and few others. And on the advice of Professor Hanumantrao, we have constituted a committee to look into this. And also, this year we invited Professor Debashish Acharya from University of Hyderabad and Professor Amar Yamnam, who have adjudged the thesis that were awarded in the last I think from 2021 onwards, both awarded by both B.R. Ambedkar Open University as well as our regular PhD program awarded by Telangana University. So in all, there were 13 PhD theses awarded, 7 in non-economics social science stream and 6 in economics. And both of them have evaluated that, taking into account the 5 OC reports and then the thesis. And two have been chosen. In economics, Dr. Sri Vidya from Commerce and Business Management, basically falling into the economics field. Her thesis has been adjudged as the best thesis. She worked under the supervision of Dr. C.T. Vidya. I think I request Madam Professor Jeemol to give the award. Yes, please come on to this. Yeah, her title of the thesis is India's Textile Sector, Trade Networks, Competitiveness and Internationalization. And in the non-economic stream, Dr. Revathi, yes, Dr. Revathi has been awarded. She worked under Professor C.H. Balaramulu, and her thesis title is, yes, Women, related to women, political participation of women in urban local bodies, a study of 2 municipal corporations in Andhra Pradesh. I request Professor Madam Fatima Alikhan. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Jeemol, for an excellent and very thought-provoking and vibrant lecture that we had this morning. The contribution of digital economy is high to the GDP. I think it's 11 to 12% that you were saying. And that sets the importance of the studying the digital economy. And the younger generation are here that they move on. That's the which is very prominent to come prominent in the coming days too. And I think 3 to 4 scholars from our PhD students are also working on this, on startups in Hyderabad, and then women entrepreneurship and such kind of topics they're working on. And it has been very useful where the technological innovation, I think innovation drives the growth in the economy, and then the spillovers of this innovation, how they are being distributed across population segments, women or youth or rural or different segments. And what you emphasized is that the ecosystem is important. So having a proper ecosystem is important, and now the states are vying with each other to create this kind of ecosystem. And Telangana also has one kind of this kind of a startup ecosystem where V Hub is a women hub, and then T Hub and B Hub, and these are all the ecosystems that are there created for people to become entrepreneurs, and especially women also to become entrepreneurs. And the methodology or the the database that you have suggested, that's also useful, where we also are going to have a detailed interaction session with some of the faculty and scholars who are working in these areas with Professor Unni in the afternoon after lunch. So thank you very much. And I thank Professor Jeemol for having accepted. As soon as I wrote to her, she instantly accepted, and she said that I'm very happy to come to CESS and give a lecture like this. And once again, I thank Professor Unni for obliging and for coming over here. I thank Professor Fatima Alikhan, who has readily agreed to chair the session, this session, and then also shared her memories of Dr. Waheeduddin Khan with all of us. I thank Professor Mahender Reddy, who's always with us and raises so many, a good debate. I thank all the faculty, students, scholars, and who have come from other institutions also, who have joined us in this lecture. And I also invite all of you for lunch after this. Thank you, one and all. Thank the family of Dr. Waheeduddin Khan for with us.
Yeah.
Thank you.